Today's episode is brought to you by my friends at Donor Perfect. It's an all-in-one fundraising software solution that helps fundraisers save time and raise more money. In fact, new Donor Perfect users typically raise 25% more funding in their first year. Donor Perfect is trusted by over 50,000 nonprofit professionals with everything they need for efficient fundraising, so they can spend their time where it truly matters, on nurturing real, authentic relationships with their donors. Learn more at www.donorperfect.com. Now on to the episode. Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Nation. I'm your host, Julia Campbell, and I'm going to sit down with nonprofit industry experts, fundraisers, marketers, and everyone in between to get real and discuss what it takes to build that movement that you've been dreaming of. I created the Nonprofit Nation podcast to share practical wisdom and strategies to help you confidently find your voice, definitively grow your audience, and effectively build your movement. If you're a nonprofit newbie or an experienced professional who's looking to get more visibility, reach more people, and create even more impact, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited you're here listening to Nonprofit Nation. This is your host, Julia Campbell. The question today is, how can we create sticky teams that thrive? So we know what makes a nonprofit successful sort of on the surface: an engaged donor base, enthusiastic board members, a compelling case for support. Those are all necessary to grow and to sustain your mission. But a critically important and often overlooked element is the employee and employee retention. So nonprofits tend to suffer higher turnover than any other sector. And the nonprofit turnover rate clocks in at just over 21%. And the overwhelming majority of that is voluntary. And surveys show that nearly half of nonprofit employees will seek other jobs by 2025. So what can be done? Well, my guest today is the one and the only Kishshana Palmer. And Kishshana is CEO of ManageMint Inc., an organizational development firm focused on helping everyday leaders live well and lead well. And in this episode, Kishshana will unravel the secrets behind creating sticky teams and boosting employee retention. Kishshana, it's been way too long, and I'm so excited to have you here, and welcome. Welcome back.
Oh my gosh, I am so glad to be back with you.
Amazing. And I want to talk about ManageMint. ManageMint is spelled ManageMint.
Yep.
So ManageMint Inc., what's the story? Tell us the story of how it came to be.
Well, I have a big smile, right?
Yes.
And somebody said to me once that my smile was minty fresh. And
Amazing.
It stuck with me, right? I know my teeth are white, but it stuck with me. And so when I was thinking about what to name my company, because I knew I wanted to go through a rebrand, I knew that I wanted to make space to scale. And there are lots of, firms that are eponymous and they have the name of their founder and it works just fine. But for whatever reason, for me, it was the Kishshana Show. And I didn't want it to be the Kishshana Show. And so, I am obsessed with leadership and management, professional and personal development. And so I just wanted to put a fresh take on management and leadership. And so there you had it, ManageMint. And so it was that easy. It was those two things that, Kishshana, you have a minty fresh smile. And thinking about putting a fresh take on it. So I was really, really excited when the team came back with such a cool and calming and just
it is. It's so nice, and the green is so nice.
Ooh, it gives you that spa feeling like you're welcome home, relax. You can take a load off right now.
Yes.
And so I was really, really excited to be able to do that. So that's how it came to be. I wish it was a fancier story, but it is not.
Well, I love it because today we're talking about, employee retention, creating sticky teams. And I've seen you speak multiple times throughout the years. And that has always been a theme, whether you're talking about fundraising, whether you're talking about leadership development. it's always been a theme in how to create an environment where your team thrives.
Yeah.
So is that one of the services you provide in your new company?
Yep, absolutely. And it's not, none of the services we offer are actually new. I have
Great.
always worked alongside some really great consultants to offer what I now call compassionate coaching, whether that's individual coaching or it is group coaching. So at the executive, senior director and above level, we do mainly individual coaching and executive coaching and advisory. But we want to make sure that there is a clear pathway and a simple playbook for young professionals to be able to move into executive leadership when they're ready to do so. And so our group coaching and learning experiences are geared toward that. We also recognize that, a lot of times, have you ever been in a retreat or facilitated a retreat that you thought to yourself, now I know I facilitated a retreat, but why are we having a business meeting?
Exactly. Yes. Well, I'm on the school committee here. So
yeah, yes, I know. So you know exactly what I mean. So when people are like, oh, Kishshana, we want your team to facilitate a retreat. I ask, a retreat or a meeting with really good food?
Right.
Because there's a difference. And your team should know what they are getting themselves into if they think they're going to take a step back, which is what a retreat is, literally to step back. And you're like, psych, this is a perfect time for us to go through all of the strategic imperatives we have upcoming. They are not the same.
Yes.
So our team helps organizations to really parse out what they're really trying to achieve, and then what does coming together look like to be able to achieve those goals. So we facilitate offsites, which include retreats, step backs, large strategic meetings, and anything that has to do with sort of like the big think, ideating to get to a particular strategic direction, or to work on implementation. And then the last thing that we do under sort of that umbrella is change management. And so that is everything from helping organizations to completely turn around, whether they've had a lot of turnover in their staff or their executive leaderships, including having my team members come in and embed, doing cultural audits, DEIB assessments, doing behavioral analysis, and really rolling up our sleeves and getting in there and helping organizations to understand that they are people powered and their mission is fueled by the health of their people. And so what needs to be true in order for them to do that well.
Yes. Yes.
And so we basically lay the ground for amazing experts like you to come in. And when you deliver your work, it actually is in fertile soil.
I completely agree with that. I think the retreat term is thrown around and it's not, no one actually really knows what it means.
Yep.
And people are really scared of doing that. But these are all topics we're going to dive into today. Yeah. So I really want to focus on some of the resources, on the management website. There's fantastic free resources. One blog post that I was reading, it's called The Sticky Truth About Employee Retention. And, one of the things that you write about, your team writes about, is that you believe employee retention goes beyond perks and bonuses. And I think so often we think it's just about the perks and bonuses. What inspired you to write about this? And what are we thinking wrongly about this topic?
Yeah. So I think that, to me, one of the things that I feel like organizational leaders miss when we think about bringing the right people to the table is what is right. Oftentimes when I do leadership advisory work, because even though I'm a certified leadership coach, most people come to me specifically when they are in crisis. And so I do best in crisis. So I typically don't coach, because coaching is about asking the right questions to get leaders to think about how they would come to the answers. When I do advisory work, it's typically to help folks to answer big, hard questions and work through it with them on a path forward. So it involves a lot of my thinking as well. And so when I work with organizational leaders, typically folks are stressed, they are tired, and they are hungry. And they are worried about losing their jobs. The number of executive directors and CEOs that talk to me, send me DMs to say, I think my board is going to fire me.
Wow.
When you have that hanging over your head all the time, it is darn near impossible to be thinking strategically, which is looking down the road, as well as what needs to be true for your team to thrive. There's no way you're creating a healthy environment when you are in store all the water, store all the canned goods, store all the bread. A snowstorm is coming, right?
Right. Well, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Correct.
If you're constantly in that fight or flight mode, how can you move forward?
Correct. And so I think that it's really, really important when we think about what makes a team stick. What is the environment? Julia, do you remember when you were kids, you go to the fair? And my favorite ride in the world is the one where it's a spinning circle and it's a magnet that sticks you to the wall, and then the floor.
I can't stand that one. I know what you're talking about. We call it the roundup, and you stick to the wall.
I forgot what it's called, but basically, like, that's the one where, and if anybody's listening, they're like, "Oh my God, Kish and Julia have dated themselves." We haven't. We don't care. But like,
no, we don't care.
Stick to the wall. You put your hands up, your legs down, and your face is stuck, and the floor drops out. Oh my gosh! But even though the floor drops out, you're still stuck. You might be like, "Oh my God," but you're stuck. I want organizations to create the kind of environment sans the falling out of the floor, where your team members are stuck. They're like, ooh, but in a good way. And so that means there have to be a set of policies, procedures, and the biggest P we like to ignore, practices, because that's what really rules our organizations, that create the space for our team members to want to stay. That is culture at its most basic, boil it down to the very essence core. Culture is a set of behaviors. And so if organizational leaders, from the chief executive to his or her, their leadership team on down, have a set of behaviors that make folks give them the side eye, they're going to be side eyeing while looking on LinkedIn while heading for the door. So my position and what I help organizations do and what my team helps organizations do is to figure out what is the sticky factor for that organization. And it's different for every organization. So I don't care if you're a small organization in the middle of a flyover state, or if you're in an obscure part of Canada, or if you're tucked up in the corner in the UK. It doesn't matter to me where you are. There is someone who wants to move to your town or city. I promise. People are getting up and changing environments every day. So how are you giving them the bat signal that this is home for them? And so we work on customized solutions to help organizations to be able to do so. So I don't have a cookie cutter way that I do it, but we definitely tailor how we create that sticky culture when we work with organizations, regardless of size.
Do you think for nonprofits that sticky factor is the sense of purpose, or what are you seeing? Okay.
No. And in fact, except if you are talking about frontline staff, which to me are programmatic, which I think to a degree should care about the work they're doing. What I always tell executives are, you need to be interviewing for the role, because let's be honest, most of us are hiring for skills. We're not hiring for talent, and we're not hiring for gifts. So talents are the things that come naturally to you. And then you can decide if you want to monetize them or not. Gifts are the things that you are born with, right? The thing you do better than anybody. And then you can decide if you want to monetize them or not. Most of us forget our gifts over time because we spend so much time on our skills, which are things that we learn and typically monetize. So as much as we want talent, what we really want are skills. And so if all you do is spend your time in that skills area, then what I want you to focus on as an executive leader is, do they love the damn skills? Because at the end of the day, I don't care how much you love this mission if you don't like accounts receivable and accounts payable, and that's your job.
Right.
Hello?
Yes.
If you don't love operations, but I'm here for the mission, guess what? The operations are going to suck. And so I want to understand that when the rubber meets the road, that you actually enjoy what you do. Because a good programmatic partner, your program team, should be able to get you out active with the mission, and a tear jerk should fall, and it should fall quickly. Like, you can fall in love with just about any mission. And I know this because I never used to be an animal lover. Nobody killed me, okay? I didn't hate the animals, but I grew up in the city in an apartment. We couldn't have animals.
Right. Oh, yeah, sure.
Right? When the pandemic came, one of my parents passed away, so we got a grief dog. And so Chanel is the light of everybody's life. I never thought that this darn dog, Ferragamo Chanel, that's her name, because you know I'm fancy, Julie. Mm-hmm. I never thought this darn dog, who turned 4 today.
Oh, I know. Happy birthday, Chanel. Like, everyone just gets excited immediately about that.
Right. But if you would have asked me prior to Chanel, I would not have been getting excited about anybody.
Because it became personal.
There you go. I had to be in the space. I had to experience her wonder. I had to experience how she's turned my mom's grief around, right? Like, in that space, she helped to heal my family. I have been able to see an animal do that, and that is wondrous. I would have never applied for a job at ASPCA, for example, just off the strength of the mission. My question as a chief development officer would have been, what does our pipeline look like? How are we thinking about branding and marketing? And so when I talk to executive leaders, that's where I want their minds to be. We get too hung up on purpose and passion. Purpose and passion are personal because they're your values in action in this season of your life. And that's it.
Yep. I completely agree with that. And I'll share a story of when I was a development director. So I was a development director hired for my skills. Also, I really believed in the mission.
Yeah.
But what I noticed in the organization was a pattern of people who were social workers and program officers being so good at their job and passionate about their job that they would then be offered things like director of development. And then since I was good at my director of development job, they wanted to offer me executive director. So it was a natural sort of transition. And the executive director had come from programs. She hated it. She hated being an executive director. She didn't want to manage people. She didn't want to look at spreadsheets. She didn't want to sign invoices. She didn't want to go talk to donors. She wanted to work with people every day.
Really? Okay.
So I see that happening in nonprofits where we just see like, oh, you're a program officer. So then you're going to now be the development director, and then you're going to now be the executive director. And that's just the natural transition of the way that we do things. I don't think that other institutions or sectors do that. I'm wondering what you're seeing. Like, what are you thinking about that?
I mean, think about it like we think about the movies. I was talking to my boyfriend about this the other day, and we were talking about rewatching the Hunger Games. Okay, so that's one of the things
that's my favorite movie series. My daughter and I are obsessed.
It's probably my top 2. Lord of the Rings still hits me as number 1. I just haven't been able to shake it. But people would not look at me and say, "Kishshana's a nerd." Yes, I am.
I would never have guessed that in 1,000 years.
I am a nerd.
Love it.
Love to read. Love to watch. Like, I just love information. Like, that's just who I am, right? I absorb. And so we were talking about the Hunger Games, and we were talking about actors and how they get pigeonholed into a particular role and how they can't break out. And so if I liken your career track to the Hunger Games and to the actors in that movie, or think about, what is the vampire one? Twilight, thank you. Sorry. Or Twilight, or any of the trilogies that we're like, oh, we can never see them as anything other than a tortured soul.
Harry Potter.
There you go. Although they're going to eat forever. Poor Hermione.
That's true. They don't need to work ever again.
Yeah. What's Hermione's even real name? Is she ever going to work again in anything else? No, we don't want to see it. And so the reality is, it is similar in your career path, which is why when I do young professional development, for early starts, they're right at grad school or they're right at college going into their first role. The thing that I talk to them the most about, and this is what I do with organizations when I want to do turnarounds, is you've got to figure out from your team, are they generalists or are they specialists? And I have a way that I assess being a generalist or being a specialist. So real quickly, when you are a generalist, think about how you just are in your real life. You want variety. You're going to the buffet. You like tapas. Right? You want to be involved in all the things. You may not want to have a leadership position on the school board, although you do now, but you're going to be at that meeting, on this committee. You just want to know. And you're not as concerned sometimes about the outcome, but you want to be in the business of knowing and doing.
Yes.
Generalists like to have their hands in the stuff. They want the variety. They get off, which is why a lot of managers struggle with generalists, because they're like, prioritize. And you're like, how? I just want to be at the tapas, right? A specialist, they like to get in and get deep. They order the same order every time from the Cheesecake Factory. They haven't changed their drink at the Buc-ee's in years. Okay,
because they know what they like and they figured it out.
They figured it out, and that's it.
Figured it out,
and they can lock in, go deep. They're experts on it. And when you start putting other things on their plate, they are frustrated, flabbergasted, flustered, and sometimes it gets conflated with performance. No, you just gave too many things to someone who likes to lock it in one at a time. What we've got to do, regardless of the job that we're applying for, and regardless of the sector, is figure out what gets my gears going. And it doesn't mean, Julia, that you can't be a specialist for a while, right? Because you like a job, you want to learn something, you want to dig in, there's a point in your life, and vice versa. But it does mean you've got to understand who you are in the world and then apply that to your career. That will allow you to be able to pivot and not get as pigeonholed, because you will then be able to say, what do I want to do next? Okay, I know it looks like this. I know it looks like that. And then you start to build those social networks that allow you to be able to move fluidly. I wish I would have done that earlier in my career. I have so many friends. I went to school up in Boston where you are. So many friends from business school who are in media, and they're in fashion, and they're in finance where I started, and they're in all the things. And I look at their career path and I'm very proud of myself, but I'm always like, dang, at what point could I have pivoted and done something else if I had a clearer sense of who I was? And I think that more than anything is what gets us pigeonholed, and we do it as leaders too. We pigeonhole others from our own lens. Anyway, I'll stop there.
No, that is really interesting to me. I feel like I started out as a specialist and now am a generalist. So I think I agree, you can pivot and you can change, and you can, if you're really interested in something that you're doing, you can dive deeper into it. And then if you are, leaning into going in a different direction, or if you're interested in other things. But this actually brings me to my next question, which is about empathetic leadership. So you highlight this, or management does highlight this, as a key strategy for retention. So what is empathetic leadership, and how can leaders cultivate empathy within their management approach?
So one of the things that I want leaders to be thinking about is, there's a lot that was getting thrown around, not so much now, because I think we've moved on because people are exhausted, but that a couple of years ago about emotional intelligence. I don't see as much about it now, but there was a time where it was like a hot thing. I did 20 sessions.
I just don't really know what that means.
So basically,
is that empathetic leadership or not? It's different.
It's connected. In order to be empathetic, I have been where you are. I can put myself where you are, as opposed to sympathetic. I can see where you are, and I can appreciate the circumstance you're in. That's the big distinction, right? Sympathetic and empathetic. So in order to be an empathetic leader, I can put myself where you are, or I have been where you are. You have to be able to have one of the key points of emotional intelligence, and that is self-awareness. I know how I show up in the world, and I know what it takes to manage that. I am self-managed. I know how my energy, my actions affect others. I can see how my movements influence others' movements. And I know what to do about it most of the time, because everybody don't know, because sometimes I'm obtuse, and Blythe will have to tell me, girl, Kish, get it together. Okay. But because I'm an empathetic leader, because I understand where my team is, and because they understand me, I get a heck of a lot of grace, as do they. And so in order to be an empathetic leader, you've got to first be a self-aware leader and a self-managed leader, which means managing your anxiety, managing your anger, understanding that anger is only one of what, 34? What did Brene Brown say? There's an episode of Heart. 34 emotions. There's a lot of them out there.
I should know this, but I don't. But
I
I'll put it in the show notes.
Either way, the reality is we are a nuanced and complex set of folk. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be able to have a handle on who you are so that you can take a step back and be human with your team, which means, and when you're an empathetic leader, you can address the behavior or the performance and not the person, unless the person is acting up, in which case then you're going to have to address the person. Hello? Mm-hmm. But a lot of us conflate the people with the performance. Mm-hmm. And so if you're more empathetic, if you're paying attention, that means you also have created space to have a relationship with your team members. And many of us, depending on how you came into the world, because I came in right under the boomers. Okay, I'm a Gen Xer. So my first manager was a boomer, and let me tell you, I had to get to work before her, and I had to leave after she did.
Oh my gosh!
Hello? You remember that?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I do. Mm-hmm.
So depending on how you came into work, your relationship with work is very different. Some of us came in where we had to go sneak off and go have drinks with our friends. Some of us came in where we were told culturally, you're not at work to make friends. That was what I was taught. Some of us were at work where it was like, you don't discuss religion, politics, or your bedroom life.
Yep.
And on and on and on and on. And so when you have that as your foundation for how you work, you have to make an active choice to now invite people in to relationship with you, which means you can be collegial. I know that your grandmother is not well and you are the one who takes care of everybody in your family. You're the family bank. And not private. I know that you take your grandmother to her kidney, to our dialysis every Friday at the such and such place, and you have to give your cousin $150 every week. Like, that's the private part. I don't have to know that as a manager. But if I know the personal, then if something kicks up in your family life and I know you're the breadwinner, you're the one who everybody comes to, you're the one who's responsible for everyone, then I can look at your performance potentially as episodic. Something is happening as opposed to will or skill. And that's that empathetic part. That's that ability to be able to see the humanness in folks and still be able to get to goal. So there's a lot of self-management that comes into being able to do that. And because many of us, Julia, are so freaking exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody's listening to us. Hell, I'm listening to myself like, I need a nap after this. Mm-hmm. It's a lot for us to manage, right?
We're managing ourselves. We're managing all of our relationships that we have outside of work, and we're managing all of our work relationships.
Yep. The reality of the situation is when I ask people, to talk to me about their experiences when I'm doing interviews for clients, et cetera, because I've done some development placement work over the last year. The thing I want to know about, honestly, is like, how do you get your energy? What do you actually game for at this point in your life? Talk to me about how you experience and how you prioritize renewal. Oh. Because we're tired.
Yeah.
We're tired.
We're mentally, emotionally.
That's it.
Physically.
Almost to the point of apathy. Because we just can't do nothing further. And then we feel guilty, Julie, right? Because, oh my God, aren't we in the business of caring about people? No, we're in the business of relationships. And the most important relationship you have got to have is with yourself. And I think
I love that.
Yeah, that to me is the work. Everything else is an outgrowth of that work.
So, all right, let's talk about culture. Mm-hmm. So in knowing everything that we just talked about and all these fantastic points and realizing that we need self-awareness, we need empathy and or sympathy. We need to be creating this kind of culture. How can we foster this sense of belonging and camaraderie amongst our team members? Maybe if the way I want to ask this is, if you're someone that tends to shy away from getting too personal, like for you and me, it's no problem. Like it's literally no problem. We became best friends like instantaneously, like over
Instantaneously.
one drink. Do you remember? Wasn't it like Omaha or Lincoln,
Yeah,
Nebraska?
it was like Lincoln, Nebraska.
But for people that are not like us, what are some tips that you have?
So one of the things I've got to tell folks is what I just said a second ago. Friends, folks, friends. We are in the business of relationships. At the end of the day, I don't care if you're in advocacy, if you are in movement building, if you are in policy, if you are a frontline fundraiser, if you run back-end operations, if you're in the program team, you want to keep going, okay? Strategy, okay? Mm-hmm. Impact, expansion, business development, people. In order for people to move work, they have to believe in the people that are moving the work. So you have you actually have an incentive to do your job to get to know people. And so if you hate small talk, then don't have small talk. Have something to talk about. Hello? So there's a team I'm working with right now. We're doing some group coaching, and they are scattered all over New York City. And so they are on their own sites. They very rarely get together as a leadership team because they're programmatic, right? So they're at their schools, they're in their schools. And so they don't really know each other that well. So what we decided to do, as opposed to scheduling the brunch nobody's going to come to, or 5 people are going to cancel day of, right? Or the mandatory retreats that people are going to be like, they just told me to be here. We decided we were going to listen to a podcast together and have a group chat about the podcast. And so we went back and forth about this podcast and what it was about. And we ended up picking a true crimes podcast. The person who ended up advocating the most is the most introverted of that group and didn't know anybody. By the end of season 1 of this podcast, this is the chattiest, most hilarious set of women I have worked with in a long time. Wow. And they galvanized around horror. Okay. They were like, I like crime. I watch crime too. So out of 20 plus women, like 12 of them secretly like crime stuff. So we found something that unified them. And then we made that the focus of how folks got to know one another. But it takes somebody saying like, okay, how do I step out of my comfort zone, but still stay a little bit comfortable? I want my bathrobe on, but I'm going to untie it a little bit, you know? And so what I encourage folks to do is find things to create commonality. And so that's something that to me, when I work with organizations on culture building, corny sells in marketing, okay? Keep it simple is the KISS method has worked for centuries and centuries. It's the same with people. Corny sells, you might roll your eyes, but you're going to do it anyway. And when I start that work, I have like a deck of cards and things that I use for conversation starters that I help some of my more introverted staff members work with to get them to have like the sentences, like the starters, the way so they can expand their lexicon. And so that's at the short of it. What I would say, if you're on your own and you don't have management in your organization, then I would say start with something fun that everyone can kind of get behind, even if they are rolling their eyes. A good podcast, a good trashy show, you know, something that you're like, oh my gosh, they have us watching.
Everyone watches Below Deck, right? Dude, it was just me.
Which show was that?
Below Deck.
Oh yes, of course. At least that Below Deck. I was like, what now? Oh, I love Below Deck. I've watched Below Deck, Below Deck Mediterranean. You know, we talked about it.
All the Below Decks.
Oh my God. I love Below Deck. I am a Married at First Sight, although I have not watched this last season. I plan to binge it as soon as I turn in my manuscript. I'm watching nothing right now if it is not things I've seen before. Because I have to finish writing. But I will watch things because, let's face it, we're obsessed with culture. And if you really think about it, we're obsessed with people's lives. We are some nosy people. We want to see. And so if you take that idea and then you embed that in your organization, remember I said set of behaviors, so that's culture, then what I'm asking folks to do, regardless of how they get their energy, introvert, extrovert, ambivert, is to get curious about the people you work alongside. Because you're in the business of relationships. And in order to close on business, people have got to trust that you will do what you say you will do. And they do not trust that if they do not know you.
Trust.
Yep.
Absolutely imperative. I love this quote. If you hate small talk, have something to talk about. This is why people hate networking events.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the networking event and you're just supposed to talk about who you are and what you do. That makes some people very uncomfortable. And then everyone's like, oh, do you have kids? Do you live around here? Do you do this? It always turns very personal. And the idea of having something that kind of unifies people. And you know what's so funny about it? Like, say we had a networking event that was all around Below Deck, there'd be the people that hate Bravo shows, and they would kind of like unite together. And then there would be the people that like this first season or the way. So it's almost like you'd create these little groups, but it would give people an opportunity to talk about something other than themselves. Correct. But then it gives them that opening, that kind of safe opening to talk about themselves eventually.
And so one of the questions that I will put out there that I ask all the time, because as much as I am a bubbly person, I'm really an introvert. I'm just nosy as hell. And I like people. And so I want to know people's stories. I'm interested. But at the end of the day, after I speak, I'm trying to go hide. Oh my gosh, I need my energy back. Jeesh. So one of the things I ask people, what are you binging now? It could be a book. It could be a podcast. It could be a TV show. It could be a movie series. That's an open-ended question. I ask that at networking events. I don't really care about what you do. Like, what are you binging on?
Could be a TikTok influencer. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I have learned so much, Julia, from people who binge on TikTok. And so much so that I started to get on TikTok. I'm still like, side-eye.
My whole house is organized because of organizing hacks.
I'm sending you a text message of my pantry because I just want you to know that it now looks like a TikTok pantry. And here's why.
Yes, I need to see it.
I'm always ready.
We will put it in the show notes.
Oh, a picture of Kishshana's TikTok. Look. Because I'll send you a link to it, because I dropped Cheetos, which are my snack food of stress. My boyfriend put them at the top shelf of the pantries because I couldn't reach them. And instead of getting on a ladder like I'm supposed to, I stood on my tippy toes to try to tip the jar over, and everything went everywhere.
Oh no.
Cheetos, dust everywhere. So I had to clean the whole pantry, which then caused me to go into a frenzy and organize the entire thing. So now it looks great.
I love it. No, but that's something that you could say, even if you're not on TikTok, what is something that you saw on social media recently that you liked or hated or maybe right.
People are obsessed with so many things. Like, I love talking to people about the food that they eat, the cooking shows they watch, the travel stuff they binge. We are all seeking, and it's something I was talking to a sales coach friend of mine, and when she does trends every year, she talks about what executives are figuring out. And there were two things that she and I went aha on that she said. One, people are seeking comfort and people are seeking escape. And all of us can talk about something that gives us a lot of comfort, and all of us can talk about something that gives us escape.
Yes.
And so if you think about it in those broadest terms, my brother used to say, well, if you're bored, that means you're boring.
Oh, absolutely. My mom used to say that all the time.
Right? And so when you think about it like that, you've always got something to talk about with somebody. So relax is the second thing I might say. Anyway.
Amazing. So let's talk about, okay, we have so many questions, but another question I wanted to get into, because I think it's pretty tactical. So let's talk about performance reviews.
Yep.
And let's talk about, I guess we could talk about it from the perspective of the leader and the perspective of maybe the person getting the performance review. Yep. But what are some of your best tips for conducting these effective, like one-on-one check-ins, maybe even beyond performance reviews?
Okay. So I might have a little bit of an, not unorthodox, but like an evolved way I think about performance. Okay. So firstly, I think we can all agree that your team members should never be surprised by anything you write or say.
Right.
So,
yes.
Remember we talked about self-awareness and self-management?
You don't want to blindside people.
There you go. And so part of self-management is being able, not just from an emotional, physical place, but also in your work style, to organize yourself so that your team members understand what it takes to be successful and that you have the discipline to not keep moving the ball. That was one of the ways I failed over and over again as a chief development officer. Not because I couldn't raise money because I raised millions. Not because I couldn't manage people because I have managed champions. Okay. But because the ball kept moving for what success looked like for me. Mm-hmm. And when you have that ball that keeps moving because your leader was in the shower and they came out with another bright idea and they want you to execute it yesterday, but you didn't do the one they said the day before yesterday, you are in a spin. And so when you think about performance management, it's about helping folks to grow so that when they leave your organization, they are wonderful professionals when they go someplace else. I don't want anybody to ever say they work for me and they go someplace else and they are janky. Don't tell anybody you work for me. My ego cannot take it. Mm-hmm. So your job as a manager is to set folks up so that when they fly the nest at whatever point that is, because let's face it, if you work for a small organization, you may not have the level of career growth, the pathway in that organization to grow. But your performance process, your performance management process should create space, career pathways, individual development plans. They do not have to be complicated so that people can see what's possible for them and they can insert their own wants, wishes, desires, and needs into that process and be measured against that, because 70% of how people grow are through stretch opportunities, which means embedded in your performance management should be the question, did I give my team members space to grow, to stretch? 20% is about you as the manager. Lord, no. And then 10% is on the webinars, courses, conferences, summits, individual reading, blogs, books that you do on your own. So that's a hell of a chunk, damn near 90% of what it takes for your team member to be successful falls on you as a manager. So if the performance management process is failing, or if there's a crack in there, I immediately step away from the team member who is being evaluated, and I want to focus on who the evaluator is and what tools they are using to evaluate. It should never be to scare people out. It should not be punitive, because in my mind and the way I operate, Julia, is that accountability is love. It means you said that you want to do a thing, achieve a thing, be measured by a thing. This is what success looks like, whether I said it was and you agreed, or you said it was and I co-signed. And I believe in your ability to get it so much that I'm going to provide the resources, space, and time to meet you where you're at so you can be successful. And I will put eyes on you and your work because I want you to be successful. That, to me, is the reframe of accountability that I want every single leader to take on, because many of us have seen accountability as punitive. And so we hide, we do slipshod work, we blame others, we act shady. And it is not necessarily because we are shady people. It's because many of us are suffering from workplace post-traumatic stress. And we just trying to make it day to day. Exactly. What you think?
I agree. I've had performance reviews that I know were strictly for punitive reasons. Yep. And I've had lovely bosses that would do regular check-ins that were just like you said, like, here, I want to help you achieve your goals, but here are also some of the goals that I think you can reach. Yep. So how can we work together to reach all of them? And how can I help you succeed reaching these goals, rather than, let's shut you up in the office and shut the door and have you raise $10 million and don't speak to me again because I'm busy. Correct. Because that's
I'm busy.
The reality for some people on the ground.
Because I'm busy. What?
Because I'm busy. Yeah.
Like, literally, just from a selfish standpoint, Julia, from a purely, because your ego is designed to protect you. So just from a protective position as a manager, it is in your best interest for your team to show up powerfully and do the damn thing at work.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
It's in your best interest. Selfishly.
I know. It's so interesting.
There's no such thing as I don't have time. I talk to my
who has time? No one has time.
No one does. So,
either you could say we don't have time, or we all have time, and Beyonce is 24 hours and
right. So the reality is, I'll give you a quick example. So just about everybody who works in management has children. It has worked out that way. I employ a ton of women. Or
they're caregivers.
Caregivers. Yeah. But it just so happens in my company, that just about everybody has kids. Everybody is sandwiched in some way, shape, or form with their parents and their children. We're all in the sort of like 35 to 55 age range. And so that's the dynamic generationally that I have in my company. We do a couple of things because I respect my team and their children. I'm a new empty nester, so the queenager is not in the house anymore, right? So I have a lot of time. I am no longer an Uber driver.
Oh man,
so
I'm in
every
that
single
stage
day,
now.
Monday through Friday, we close from 2:30 to 4. That's not lunch. We just close. Okay. If we lived abroad, it'd be like natural siesta, right? So I said, well, why am I having my team get stressed out about pickup and being on the pickup line and going to take people to dance and going to do such and such, and they're on the phone call trying to talk at the same time as they're trying to be in the that's stressful as hell. And so we're just gonna close. Like I will take meetings now because I don't have Sinai at home. So if I need to, I will do it for sure. But nothing is on their calendar. Absolutely not. And that's a decision I made as a manager because I wanted to make sure that they knew that I trust them to do their work and to do their work with excellence, and that they can manage their time, and that I respect their time and their family time. And so part of our company culture is that we don't have the like family, because that means you don't have boundaries. When you have a family culture, we are definitely very collegial, but we believe that if you have a personal life that you can manage, then you will show up powerfully at work. And so how can I help you manage life so that you can create space for us to hit our goals so we can all keep getting paid and we can help clients and be impactful and all the things. So that's kind of how I think about performance in action.
Yes. So I have a question I just thought of.
Sure.
How do you see, and do you see these kinds of like employee retention tactics being different generationally? Because I know that's a question you must get a lot. Like, how do we reach Gen Z, and do they care about different things than Gen X? And how are you seeing this?
So I think that, honestly, Julia, our generation is the one everybody ignores, right? So we the last.
Oh, everyone ignored Gen X.
They just ignore us completely. The Gen Xers are like, we are the latchkey kids of the workplace too.
Yep.
Just fend for yourself, friends. If there was a zombie apocalypse, though, Julia, we would be all right. You hear me?
We really would. We'd be fine.
All right. So one of the things that I talk to leaders about, first of all, I try to make the implicit explicit. I do not ignore people's age. I do not ignore people's ethnic backgrounds. I do not ignore people's cultural backgrounds. I do not ignore big family, small family, first in family, last in family, oldest, youngest, middle child. Why? Because everywhere you go, there you are. So why ignore it? So when I work with leaders on thinking about retention practices, if their organization is small, 20 or less, it's really easy to do because I just do, I'm a Clifton Strengths Coach. I just do Clifton Strengths assessments. I can get into how people work. There's a book I love called The Primal Question. And so I had them do that questionnaire. It's free. And I'm able to like incorporate that into, okay, here's what it takes for people to stay. And almost always, Julia, it is not money. Oh my gosh. It's not money.
No.
In one organization I worked with at the end of last year, I worked with them for a full quarter. One of the biggest shifts we made around retention, this is so silly, was making sure that everybody had an opportunity for movement every week. Some people went to yoga. Yep. Some people went to Pilates like me. Some people went to dance. Some people went for golf. Some people.
You've talked about this.
I have.
Yes. This is a great story.
I do it over and over again. And the more that I encourage and I'm able to help executive leaders see to try it, the more it works. I tried it with myself first. So anything that I am teaching or consulting on, believe it, but listen, I have done it or failed at it. You would not believe the emails that I am getting from those team members. Remember, I didn't say exercise. I said movement. And all I said to the executive leader, and we did a retreat with the whole team. I said, listen, if you all get moving, I guarantee you the energy around here is going to change. They're actually in place-based, so they weren't a hybrid team or a remote team. I guarantee you the energy around this place is going to change. All of a sudden, Julia, 3 months in after that, so now we're talking now, people are doing meal planning. I didn't ask them to do that. The whole kitchen has a whole new set of different types of snacks, and then they have their like emotional draw. Like people have competitions that they're about to do for the spring. This one is supporting that one because they're going to do Tough Mudder. This one is doing a triathlon, and so the teammates are supporting them by taking on the work at this part of the morning so they can train. Mm-hmm. All from the agreement to make space to move. So when you think about retention and being creative about retention across generations, you've really got to step back and say, okay, let me ask my team and make space to listen. What is really important to them? For real, for real. And then can we make space for the time or the resources, financial or otherwise, to be able to meet them? And the answer is more times than not, you can. It's not costing me any more money to close my business 90 minutes a day every day. And if they decide they want to go do lunch, who cares?
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about employee retention across generations, really understanding and being able to read the room on what newer professionals care about, what mid-career professionals care about, what more seasoned professionals care about, and what senior professionals care about. Oftentimes, there's going to be at least one or two things that overlap, but there is space for having different tactics to get to your strategic goal, which is very low attrition. That's the goal. Keep your people.
Keep your people. I think I love that you parsed it out where they are in the organization rather than their age. Mm-hmm. And there's so many more factors to consider than just age. Mm-hmm. And people get so hung up on the demographics and the generations mm-hmm. and thinking Gen Z is so different from, boomers, which maybe they grew up in a different time, but, there are a lot of synergies, like there are a lot of similarities potentially, and seeing each person as an individual rather than sort of a stereotype of their generation or their background, right. I think is incredibly important. This is fantastic. I want to just wrap it up with, I'd love to learn more about management's Sticky Teams on-demand training, where people can find it, and how can it help organizations improve their retention efforts.
So before you ever work with us, I want you to have the tools you need to get started. That has been my belief. Everybody is not going to be able to make the investment to work with management. I hope they would, because it is game changing, not just because I run this company, but because I have seen it work in my work, in organizations where I run teams and raise money and do the marketing and all the things. I've seen it work. So Sticky Teams is all about getting started, right? In the assessment we have and the training, how to start the conversations internally, and then how to create the tools, the physical or digital things that are needed to get the ball moving. And one of the things that I talk about in Sticky Teams in that particular on-demand is policies, procedures, and practices. Because those 3 Ps, if we understand how our organization really functions, then we're able to start to parse out what would need to be true in order to create the type of organization where people stick. And I wanted people to have that for free, because I wanted folks to be able to get started wherever they are. And then when they need more help or more implementation, or they want something a little bit more sophisticated or more nuanced, if you will, or more customized, then they reach out to my team and we step in and help them in the way that makes the most sense for them. And so that's why I created it. Honestly, I just want people to be able to go.
And there's so many other resources. So it's ManageMint, that's ManageMint.co /free resources.
That's it. And we keep adding to it, Julia. So because I just deeply believe that I used to charge for all types of things and people paid and it was fine. And then I was like, you know what? Folks just need stuff. Okay. And when they need more stuff, then they'll pay for the stuff they need.
Yeah. So and it also, I find that now, especially, people really need to see like your vibe and your philosophy and how you work and the kind of things that your company writes about before making that investment. So I really strongly encourage people to check out the incredible free resources. But Kishshana, if someone wants to hire you to speak, I'm sure a lot of people have been very inspired. I know you still do a lot of speaking. Where can people connect with you personally?
So I'm the CEO of ManageMint. So if you go to management.co, you're going to find out about our team's work, our team, the work we do, and how we can help you. There'll be very little about me. And so to ask me to come into your organization, either to your summit, your conference, to your foundation, to speak, go to KishshanaPalmer.com. And so that's KishshanaPalmer.com and get started. It's right there. My team will get you booked. And so I can be booked and busy. But what I care about is impact. And I care about impact and activation. Those are the things. We can't have impact and activation. I don't want it. And so if that's what you are looking for your audience, for your organization, for your association, for your next event, either for me to host or be keynote, then KishshanaPalmer.com is where I'd love you to head over. And if you want me to coach you one-on-one, if you're an executive leader, and that's what you're looking for, something transformational for your personal life and your professional life, you'll find that there as well.
Can we talk about the book?
Oh my gosh.
It comes out, the title. I want to hear all about it. Let's do that to wrap up.
So, dropping in time for the holiday season. Oh my gosh. Wiley is my publisher, and the book is Busy is a 4-letter word. How to achieve more by doing less.
I want to buy it immediately.
Oh my God.
Well, we'll do another interview later on in the year talking about the book, but I'm assuming if they sign up for your stuff, they follow you in LinkedIn,
they'll get everything.
They'll get all the information.
And I'm going to be launching my book crew, which is called the Busy Bees. And so my book crew will be launching probably next month, right around my birthday. And so this is going to be my crew that'll get all the inside stuff. You'll get an early read. You'll be able to get swag. You'll be able to be like basically my street team. And so there'll be information on that to become a Busy Bee, because we want to be able to show folks that busy is in fact a 4-letter word. So that I'm really excited about that.
All right. Oh my gosh. It was so fantastic to connect, catch up, learn about management. And we'll definitely get you on the podcast again soon, Kishshana.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the phenomenal work that you continue to do. It's been so much fun and a joy to grow alongside you. I think we're like the entrepreneurial class of 2015, 2016. And so just really happy that we've continued to grow up together in our work, and that you have such an impact globally. Darn it, Julia. For real. Russia, Australia, New Zealand. Where we going next? So thank you so much for keeping me as a part of your community.
Thank you. Well, hey there. I wanted to say thank you for tuning into my show and for listening all the way to the end. If you really enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, and you'll get new episodes downloaded as soon as they come out. I would love if you left me a rating or a review, because this tells other people that my podcast is worth listening to. And then me and my guests can reach even more earbuds and create even more impact. So that's pretty much it. I'll be back soon with a brand new episode. But until then, you can find me on Instagram at JuliaCampbell77. Keep changing the world, you nonprofit unicorn.